Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
There is a Hasidic story that the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, that whenever the Jewish people were in trouble, he used to go into a particular forest and find a holy spot, and there he would light a holy fire and say a special prayer to God, asking for God to protect the Jewish people. And every time he said it, his prayers were answered. And then after the Baal Shem Tov passed away, what were they going to do? Well, the Maggid of Mezrich, his successor, he still went back to the same spot, but he no longer knew how to light the holy fire, but he could say that same prayer, and his prayers were answered. But then time passed again, and then there was Rabbi Moshe Leb of Sasov, who was a student of the Maggid, and he went back to the same forest, but he forgot how to recite the prayer, and he just stayed there. He didn't know the prayer anymore. And then finally it came that his grandson, Rabbi Israel Ridgen, the great grandson of Maggid Mezrich, when they were troubled for the Jewish people, he no longer knew where a place was in the forest. He didn't know the prayer, and he didn't know how to light the fire. But he just sat down in his armchair and he told the story, and he said, "This has to be enough." He just told the story. So on one hand, this story in my mind teaches us how we, over time, lose connect with first-hand experiences, historical experiences, spiritual experiences, religious experiences, and they're no longer as real as they were. And so just this last week, we observed International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and a number of us who were here were at the library, the Oak Park Library, and there was a very moving speech by a member of ours, Raya Ben Shir, and she talked about her testimony as a child of survivors. And when I was listening to it, I thought, it's so powerful, even if it's not a survivor talking, to hear a child of survivors giving their testimony of what it's like to grow up in such a home and to hear that and to be amongst it. And immediately I kept thinking, well, we're in this changing of generations where we don't have the generation of survivors as much around us, but we do have those who come afterwards. But what will happen afterwards? What will happen one generation from now, 2 generations from now, when we don't have them? And on some level, religious and spiritual memories are even harder to hold on to. And there's these great big experiences that create new religions and denominations where religion feels alive and real and powerful. But then over generations, we build institutions and organizations and rules, and it loses some of that power. But still, we have our stories to tell. So this week in the Torah, we're telling the story of the Exodus. This is a story that's our central story of where we come from. The people are leaving Egypt after 400 years in slavery. And there's a part of it that's said all throughout the Parsha. The beginning of the Parsha, it says, "I am making this happen so your children and your children's children will know what happened in this moment." And by extension, all of us to this day, thousands of years later, telling some of it. And so the commentators say, why was it important? Obviously, so future generations can know, but also so future generations can know about the power of freedom and what that feels like. And at the end of the Parsha, we have the commandment that gives birth to the Haggadah that we read on Pesach, "V'higareta levincha," and you should tell your children about what happened. And so I always think about this. We can imagine in the generations after, however that happened, leaving Egypt, right? There were first-hand testimonies. They could say what it actually felt like to be there, to leave Egypt. What did it feel like to leave slavery? What was it like? They had anecdotes, first-hand accounts. But then not long after, all of that disappeared, and it just became the story that we have to tell. And so we're so far from those experiences, we can't even begin to imagine what it actually felt like to be there. But what we do still have is this story. And the story still has a power to it. The story gives us at least a little bit of a window into what it must have been like. This is why we hold on to these stories, because however we tell them in so many different ways. And tonight, we're here surrounded by our beautiful tapestries that tell the story of Exodus that Barrett, who's with us, wove for us a few years ago. And they tell this story all the way back over there is the beginning of the story, and here is the end of the story, when the people are dancing around the tabernacle, having integrated all the lessons of Sinai and everything that happened. And so we tell all these stories because they open up a window to a time and place And they teach us stories, just like the Holocaust, we hope will be a story that continues to live on for all of us, to teach us that we shouldn't sit aside when things happen in the world around us and people are taken from their homes because they're strangers, and to teach us that we should keep seeking truth, and to teach us that to meet what it means to keep living as Jews is to be filled with that faith and freedom, and to let that powerful religious experience make us be active joiners in the world for justice. And to remember that even if we don't always know where it happened, or how exactly it happened, or where the mountain was, or where the valleys were, but that power still can inspire us and transform our lives. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Please rise for Leinu, page 56.